Welcome to the week one go-to session. This is the first of four such sessions we will be holding this month. Thanks to the people here in attendance, we have a pretty good turnout. We have 10 people with us. Yes, that's a good turnout. Anytime we hit 10 or more. Um, Not everybody can be here right at this exact time that we hold the live session, 7 p.m. Eastern, every Tuesday. Okay, so next Tuesday we'll be back after the holiday. I'm going to begin with just some bureaucratic stuff, okay, stuff about the class. I do have a nifty little presentation to go through. So here we go. Welcome to English Composition. I look forward to working with each of you. I look forward to reading your writing. So welcome aboard. This is for probably most of you, your fourth month. If you're a campus student, English might be a month two course. But for all of my online people, this is a month four class. So you already know how Full Sail works, right? It's a sprint, not a marathon. Classes are 4 weeks. That doesn't sound terribly long, but it is and it isn't at the same time. A month feels like it should be long, but wow, it's over before it even starts. Um, this month is going to feel even shorter because we have the Thanksgiving holiday just happening this week. And I guess maybe I should start there. I'll get back to the presentation. But if you look at the due dates, okay, so you have a bunch of getting started stuff to do. How many people here, by the way, have signed up for everything? Clearly, you've done the lecture registration because you're here with me now. But are we signed up over at McGraw Hill and turn it in? Okay, so all of your major assignments. So for this week, technically it's going to be due next week though. It's always the 0.5. So for week one, it's the 1.5. For week two, it's the 2.5. These are the major writing assignments. These all need to be submitted to turnitin.com. Okay. So it looks like Stephanie and I apologize if I don't pronounce this correctly, but Daquan, Christina. Good. And actually, let me, because we do have people who can't attend live and they'll be watching this lecture, let me just real quickly show how easy some of this getting started stuff is. So, lecture registration, this is just, you can join at any time, okay? There's one link that will sign you up for all four sessions for the entire month, but if you miss this one and want to join one in the future, you can still click on this link and get registered. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Okay, let me get back in. The other two things are pretty straightforward too. McGraw Hill. Okay, so let me go into that real quickly. You have a video to watch, and right below it is the link that you need. Once you click on this link, I'm not signed in McGraw Hill, so this will show what it looks like. You should come to a page that looks like this. You'll see my name and the month. Okay, we're not in December yet, but this is technically what we're working toward. Okay. December 2018. If you don't see my name or you see a different month, you're in the wrong spot. Okay. But clicking on that link should take you there. And the other big sign up thing is turn it in. Very simple as well. Okay. So if I go into the turn it in instructions, there's always a ton of instructions, but really you just need to go to here. You go to turnitin.com and you need two things: this ID, okay, and an enrollment key, a password, which is just Christmas or the abbreviation for Christmas, Xmas, all lowercase, okay? So just these four letters, and you'll be signed up for turnitin.com for the entire month. Stephanie asks if I already have a McGraw Hill account. Do I need a new one for this class? I don't think so. I don't think that's how it works. Stephanie, have you tried to click on this link here? Do you have problems with it when you click on it or something? It's my understanding that we've gotten away from actual dedicated passwords for students, and so that just by being a Full Sail student, you should be able to click on this link. And let me bring up that page again. Stephanie says it doesn't open. Really? I guess you could try copying and pasting this link and putting it in your browser, but as you can see, I click on it and I go right here. And then it's just a matter of putting your Full Sail email address, clicking begin, and the video should cover whatever other steps, but it's really a snap. I think the video is short too. Let me see. Yeah, it's like a minute and a half. Okay. Stephanie, actually, oh, okay, that was for turn it in. Did you have issues with turning it in then? I should say, if anybody has problems, call FSO support at 877-437-6349. I'm going to say that out loud again for the people who are viewing because they can't see the number I just typed into the chat. That's 877-437. Actually, I made a mistake. How I typed it. Let me type that again for the people. People who watch lectures can't see this control panel in the chat window. 877-437-6349. That's FSO support. Call right now. 877-437-6349. Act now. Listen, FSO support is great. They can pretty much answer any questions. Obviously, they can handle questions dealing with the platform, but they're very used to getting questions about McGraw-Hill and Turnitin. They can usually help with very, very basic things. Okay, so that second number I put there is the correct one. All this information, by the way, is also contained in your About tab. Okay, so you should have a little thingy here, which will bring up the course syllabus, various resources. I think it's the this document here. Actually, here, FSO support card. Okay, so that will open up a PDF where you get the email address, the connect page, but really, call. Here's a toll-free number in case. The number I just gave you still works as well. So either one. But yeah, call, because if you try to send them an email, they can take a long time to get back to you. Calling, I always get right through. Like maybe I have to call 5 minutes later if they're busy, but they're quick and available to help you with any problems. Okay. So let's start talking about this month. Do I have to cover any other kind of bureaucratic things? I don't think so. The best way to send me a message is obviously to use the messaging function up here. Never thought I'd be old enough to think of email as old tech, but I guess for younger people, that's how they view it. I still remember email from the 90s being like the greatest thing ever, and I still think of it that way. But I am slowly shifting. Like, I do check email, but like once a day. It is so rare that students send me emails because everybody sends me messages through the system. Okay, so please do so because that's where you'll get the quickest response. You're welcome to send an email. It's just that I'll be checking this always. Okay, so let's get into what we're doing this month. First of all, again, welcome to English Composition. As I said at the beginning, I'm excited to work with each of you this month. Let me get away from this for a second. I'm sorry, I forgot the most important thing. Okay, so week 1 is interrupted, right? We have Thanksgiving this Thursday. I hope all of you have a great time. I'm going to do absolutely nothing. Really, I'm not going anywhere. That's okay. There's a whole slate of football. I'll be fine. So nobody be sad for me. But yeah, I'll be here in Orlando, just hanging out, enjoying the time off. But obviously, most of you have probably things to do, so we're not going to have due dates over the holiday. Okay? We couldn't, even if we wanted to. So some of the due dates have been changed. And do I have this set right? Yeah, November 27th is next Tuesday. Okay. So normally things are due on Sunday. So if this were a normal week, the first major writing assignment, this guy here, the 1.5 assignment, which we will talk in detail about in a little bit, would be due on Sunday. But since this is a long 4-day weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's going to be Tuesday when you return. Okay? So you get a little bit of a breather there. And we'll go over this assignment. It's not terribly difficult. Those of you who are here, obviously, should do just fine, I think, because that's my other important message, is that be sure to watch lectures. It's a requirement, okay? But it's also, the students who attend or watch lectures do just fine in this class. Not only do they just do just fine, they usually get A's or B's. The assignments in this class, they seem easy. Like when we get to this first major assignment, which is a worksheet. At first glance, the worksheet seems easy. Like, oh, look, 10 questions. All I got to do is answer them. And I guess that's it. But there's more to it than that, okay? It looks simple, but it's easy to do poorly on the assignment. Because if you're not demonstrating the concepts that are going to be presented in this first lecture, that can really set you on a path of maybe not a hot grade on this first assignment, but can set you on a problematic path for the rest of the month. Doesn't mean that things can't be corrected. It's still an early assignment. We can correct those things, but yeah, watching lectures are crucial. Okay. You'll notice also that the first 3 weeks kind of repeat themselves. You have the same thing due every week. Okay. So you have a journal response. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. You have these achieve modules, which are done over at McGraw-Hill. I'm going to show that in real time. But each week it kind of repeats. So week 2, same thing. You have a weekly journal. You have an interactive achieve module to do over at McGraw-Hill. And then you have the next major writing assignment, which builds upon the first assignment. Okay. So each assignment in this class builds upon the next. Week 3, same thing. Okay. Little bit of a change in week 4. The interactive achieve modules stop and they're replaced with a different activity, peer review. Okay. A lot of this may not make perfect sense right now, but don't worry because it will once we get into the presentation. Okay, I think we have covered most of the peer. Oh, let me go into real quickly. Okay, so journal response. You can read through most of the instructions, but I've highlighted the key stuff. Okay, and it pretty much doesn't change week to week. Using quotes and or concepts from the week's reading as well as the lecture. Discuss brainstorming or responsible writing. But here's the important stuff, and I've actually tweaked the instructions a little bit. Think of this journal entry as an informal quiz. Okay, I need to see strong evidence that the readings were completed and this lecture has been attended or watched. This is why I recommend writing 2 medium paragraphs, one that summarizes the reading, one that summarizes the lecture. Here's my promise to you. By week 2, because week 1, sometimes students are still learning expectations for the assignment, but starting week 2, I want to be able to enter 100s for these assignments because really, I want to make sure that people are watching the lectures. So when I say that I treat these journal entries as informal quizzes, I mean it. Like, prove to me that you've done the reading, prove to me that you watched the lecture. Now let's go to McGraw-Hill for a moment, okay? I don't want to log in this way. Here, let me go to this entry, and I'm going to show you in just real time what things look like. Okay, so let's go in December for this month. Let me go into the student view. And this is what things will look like on your end. As you can see, everything's organized really neatly. Like all of your achieve modules are found here. Okay, there's one for each week, 1, 2, and 3. That's why it says 3 items. So for week 1, you just have to do this first one. It's even labeled week 1. You also have readings, all tucked in this folder. So you don't have to go to the actual textbook and hunt around for things. The readings are already set out for you. Okay, you just click on this little guy here, this little arrow to begin, click begin, and the reading will open. And even though the reading said, what did it say here? 32 pages. Okay, so you might be thinking, wow, that's a lot. The readings are pretty, they're pictures. Like, yeah, here's 1 page, right? Just these 3 short paragraphs. You don't have to do anything that's in these green boxes. So if the green boxes suggest a prompt or a writing activity or a thought activity, you don't have to do that. You just have to read the text. Okay, and then you move forward. As you can see, here's a big picture. So it's 32 pages, but they're pretty light pages. Okay. I'm fine with occasional, I want to stress that, occasional skimming or reading for gist. The reading is important, don't get me wrong. Okay, it is going to help you. But the lectures are kind of more important. Like, if you're not attending or watching lectures, it's sort of a struggle to complete assignments correctly. I mean, I think you can get through the reading pretty easily, considering it's short. But yeah, the readings and the lecture, this is what you're going to summarize in the weekly journals. Okay, does that make sense to people? I mean, so we have Brandon, Christina, Destiny, Jose, etc., Stephanie. 2 Stephanies in the class. Okay. Yeah, when you do this journal thing, think of it as, okay, I need to prove to David that I've done the reading. So here's my paragraph that summarizes the reading. I need to prove to him that I've watched the lecture. So here's my paragraph that summarizes the lecture. If you're wondering, well, I'm in the lecture right now, why do I have to summarize? I won't remember, okay? We have 2 Stephanies. Already that's confusing. Which one did what? Okay, so yeah, write 2 paragraphs, one that summarizes the reading, one summarizes the lecture, and you should be in good shape. While I'm in McGraw-Hill, let me show the Achieve modules. Okay, so let's click on week 1. I'll show you a few questions. Click Begin. It will take time to load. And load. Here we go. Okay, for some reason it started me over here on help. I'm just going to go up to the assignment. I think that's what I have to click on. You can set up a study schedule. Okay. I've already done that, so it will ask you if you want to work on the module once per week, 3 times a week, 4 times a week. You can do it all in one sitting if you want. But because it looks like I've already started this previously, I think I can jump right in. So here's week 1. A woman will talk to you. I'm going to pause her. I'm just going to click OK. And you have different options for how you want to complete it. Answer 4 questions correctly in a row. Or you can just jump in and do the assignment. It gives you an approximate time, an hour and 15 minutes. Might take you a little bit longer, might take you a little bit shorter. Now, here's where I have to show off my grammar knowledge. Basically, the Achieve modules are helping you improve grammar. So it says, in which sentence is the apostrophe correctly used to show possession in a noun series? Darcy's and Howard's letters each arrived in the mail yesterday. I hate This is embarrassing. I'm not sure. I know it's 1 or 3. This one's not correct because there's no apostrophes whatsoever. Here's the awesome thing, though. Let's say you don't know. I'm going to say I have no idea. I think it's Darcy's and Howard's, right? Because she has a letter, he has a letter. Both of those each arrived. I think this is for when, like, Darcy and Howard, if they're a pair, and the letters are collectively by both of them. But here, I'll select this one as the right one. And let's say I'm unsure. So I'll click unsure. And look, I got it right. If you don't get it correct, it's probably going to come up again. And this is where you should remember the right one. But look what happens when I click OK. See, there's a little bar down here. It immediately went from 0% to 2%. When you get to 100%, you're done. Here, I'll answer one more. Highlight the prepositions in the following sentence. Click to highlight. Through is a preposition. Above is a preposition. Prepositions are those small words like of, but also words that indicate like directions. So like above, below, through. Okay, and if you're not sure, you can be honest and say you're not sure. You kind of learn through repetition. So I'm pretty sure. I don't think there are any more prepositions in here. So I'll say I know it. Correct. Boom, we jumped up to 4%. Here, I'll answer one more, and that's going to be it, because I can't do it all for you. Which sentences are indirect questions that should end with a period? Check all that apply. The Student Council voted on which initiatives to support in the next academic year. Indirect questions. Because on the side, where to go in Paris? Where can I find... Okay, so it's these two, right? Basically, indirect questions mean there's a questions buried in here, like... which initiatives should we support? Where should we go in Paris? But they're not literally phrased as questions. Whereas these two are direct questions that need to end with question marks, okay? So I feel confident that I know it. Yay! There, I'm up to 6%. I got to stop, though, because if I keep doing it for you, Brandon says where the rabbit can go pretty much. Oh, yeah, okay, good for prepositions, right? Under, through, above, below, on. On's another one. So yeah, you'll learn a lot by doing it. Once you get to 100%, you're done. And here's the awesome thing. Actually, let me show our main screen of activities. So, okay, so you can see these weekly journals, right? Where you just have to summarize 1 paragraph, summarize the lecture, 1 paragraph, summarize the reading. You do that, I'm happy to give you 100 or pretty darn close to it. That's worth 5%. These Achieve modules, you complete them to 100%, you get 100. You complete it to 78, you get a 78. But there's no reason why you shouldn't get to 100, right? So think about it. That's 10% each week that's in your back pocket. And actually, if I total it up, it comes to something like 45% of the class is pretty much in your control. And if 45%, nearly half the class is an A, like you could fail the other half and still get a C. I don't recommend doing that. Why not go for the gold? Go for a B or an A. Um, but yeah, the class is actually designed that way on purpose. So no single low score on, let's say, the major writing assignments can ever torpedo your overall work in the class. Okay, there are lots of ways to pass this class, and not just pass, but do well in the class. Okay. Uh, yeah, Jose is asking the lecture that you have to summarize. Is this one? Yes, the lecture you're watching right now. And again, Jose, it might sound silly because you're probably thinking, well, I'm here. How does he not know? But believe me, when it's after Thanksgiving and I come back and I start looking through journals and I'm teaching 3 classes with 25 students each, that's 75 students, I'm not going to remember who is here tonight. Okay. Okay, let's get into what we're doing this month, though, in the first major writing assignment. I've started this like 3 different times, but welcome to week 1. I look forward to working with you. We talked about this, okay? So I'm going to fly through this. Remember, I clicked on the About tab. It's got the syllabus. It's got resources. Let me put in a little plug for the Writing Center. It's real simple to set up an appointment. Just Writing Center at fullsail.com. So Writing Center, one word, at fullsail.com. This is also contained in your About tab. It requires 24 hours advance notice, Monday through Friday. But if you would like one-on-one sessions with a tutor using the same technology, GoToTraining, it's really easy to set up. So here's a little thing. You can read this on your own. Why do I have to take this class? So you get a nice quote here, little statistic. I find that I don't really have to convince students of this. Like even students who come in, and it's not many, but maybe who come in with a little bit of resistance, like why do I have to take this class? I'm here to study recording arts. I'm here to study cinematography, digital cinematography. I'm here to study game art. Why do I have to take English? Even those students don't really believe their question. I laughed not because it's funny. I'm saying it's an awkward laugh, okay? Because usually it has something to do with past experiences. In high school, they took an English class, and not only did they not do very well, but the teacher made them feel lousy. Okay, or maybe they took a class at a community college and the same thing happened. So their past experiences are being carried over to this class, and that's where the resistance comes from. I don't think I really have to convince many people that being able to speak well and being able to write clearly is important. Or as I always like to say, show me a person who's very successful, who can't write or speak. I mean, it's difficult, right? Yeah, I guess you could maybe search high and low for someone who, I don't know, won the lottery or something and doesn't have strong writing skills, but look at successful people, CEOs, artists, filmmakers. Okay, show me one who cannot speak or write. And again, I don't think I have to really convince people this. People sort of know. Again, it's their past experiences that maybe get carried over, and I'd like to change that this month. I only have you for 4 weeks, but I think we can make some serious strides. Also, I think this is contained in maybe one of your readings. It's something I've said all my life, so I was so excited to see the textbook says this. But this stuff about being, like, some people are just born writers. That is BS. That is complete garbage. No, it's not like, you know how, like, some people are born just musical prodigies, or, I don't know, they have some facility with adding great sums of numbers in their head without a calculator. Writing is not like that. Or maybe there are a few people, I don't know. Maybe Toni Morrison is a born genius, but we don't like people like that. Because the rest of us learn to write the hard way. Okay? You just do it. It's from practice. You do it, you care about it, like anything that you care about. Full Sail is a pretty artistic place, so maybe we have some artists here. Anybody here who's into drawing or music or film, right? If you're a creative person, you're probably pretty passionate about the things you create. So same thing with writing. Okay, those of us who care very much about writing, we focus on it quite a bit. We commit our lives to it. We read a lot. We write a lot. Maybe you don't think you're in that category, but still, you don't have to be in love with writing to make great strides writing. You just have to make that first step to start caring about it. You can make incredible strides. Okay, so look at this colorful picture here. This kind of hints at what we're working on this month. Stephanie says, the reading said writers learn by reading. That's why I love this textbook, because I'm telling you, I've been saying these things all my life. I used to have a soapbox speech I would give. You know how, like at universities, you take like freshman comp. This class is kind of like the equivalent of that. And I would always tell them two things. One, there's no such thing as being a born writer. Anybody can learn to write. Anybody can start. So if you haven't paid much attention to writing or haven't given it much thought, really, it can be 20, 25, 30 and make incredible strides. But the second thing I would always tell students is that you need to start learning to read things as writers, not readers. Right? For most of your lives, you've been taught like, what's the theme in this story, or what's the symbol, right? Like reader questions, reader, reader, reader. But you can learn a tremendous amount by reading like a writer. What does that mean? Obviously, I don't expect you to do it in every single sentence, but the next time you pick up something, it could be an article on sports, it could be a video game review, it could be Twilight, right? Those books. It has to be publishable, like professional quality prose. But just for a single short paragraph, okay? You can't do it all the time because that would be tedious, but for a single short paragraph, try to pay attention to what you're reading, like the words on the page. If you do that, you'll notice lots of interesting things like, oh, that's where the comma goes. Or, oh, that's how that word is spelled. Or that's how that sentence structure works, right? I didn't learn to write by reading grammar books. I learned to write mostly by reading. The more you read, the more it soaks into through a sort of osmosis. I never met someone who writes well but doesn't read. So they go hand in hand. Okay, so this month we're going to focus on your writing. But yes, we have a kind of, I don't want to call it theme. It's the topic for this month, which is advertising. Okay, something that's all around us. The good news is this class has a single assignment. Well, actually, it has 4 assignments, but we are working toward the creation of a single essay, just one essay. Okay, but it is going to be a specific ad analysis essay. Real quickly, let me get away from this presentation for a second and show you the list of ads. Some of you probably found this already, but it's contained in the first major assignment. Okay, so I'm going to open this guy up. The 1.5 preparing to write assignment. This is a worksheet, by the way. So your first major assignment is to complete a worksheet. I'm going to show the worksheet a little bit later. You can read all this stuff on your own, okay? I'm going to scroll down to the list of ads. So you have, I think, 8 ads. 5 television commercials and 3 print ads. And they're marked. See, print. Now, here's the thing. Yes, you're going to be choosing one of these ads to work with for the entire month. My advice is don't start picking an ad right now. For example, some of you are thinking, ooh, Apple. I love Apple. I've got an iPad. I've got an iPod. I've got an iPhone. Wait until this lecture is over, okay? Because my first major piece of advice is not to pick an ad based on how much you love McDonald's or Apple. Does anybody truly love Allstate? Probably not. No, you should pick an ad based on how clearly you can see things going on in the ad. And we're going to do some practice at this, okay? So we're going to look at some ads during the session and see if we can come up with ideas, things to say about it. So I would hold off on absolutely choosing a specific ad. Lots of people choose Call of Duty. That's fine. Actually, Call of Duty is probably one of the friendlier ads. It's got a lot of things going on. Let me give and I know I should we'll get into the ads in a second, okay? Practicing. But the other thing is print ads, I think they're more challenging than television commercials. I'm not trying to scare people away from them. It's just that, let me open up a print ad. So actually, let me open up this one because I keep meaning to delete this every month. I always forget. I love this ad, but this is the toughest ad out of the 8. Every month I get 2 students who hear that and say, well, I'm going to show Mr. Sussman. I'm going to choose this ad. They usually do a good job. But yeah, this is a tough ad. The reason I say that print ads are more challenging than television commercials is because on some level, if you choose a print ad, you have to be comfortable with discussing visual elements. Okay? And because commercials have more things going on, there's sound, there's music, there's movement, there's often plot or story, there's camera work, there's camera angles, there's lots of things going on. But print ads are a static image, right? So Yeah, you have to be comfortable discussing visual elements. So we have 5 television commercials, 3 print ads. Um, I don't know. People seem to be drawn more towards commercials usually, but every month I have people who are sort of comfortable with visual stuff. Actually, let's just jump right into it, okay? So let's start practicing. First, though, before we look at an ad, I'm going to keep repeating a number throughout the entire month. The number is 3. Why 3? Because that's your goal. Whatever ad you choose, you have to be able to spot 3 interesting things going on in the ad. Now, things, that sounds like a vague word, so what do I mean? 3 moves that the ad makes, 3 choices that the ad's creators made. Okay, a typical ad like that McDonald's ad or that Call of Duty ad. These companies hire ad agencies. They're paid millions of dollars to create these ads. So no detail in the ad is accidental. They don't just make it up. Okay, there's a lot of planning that goes involved. That's involved in creating these ads. You have to identify 3 things. Now, I do think that the things you should be looking for, okay, so you can spot 3 interesting, important moves that the ad makes, can be put into 2 broad categories. Oh, I didn't know this slide was coming. Yeah, we're working on ad analysis. I already mentioned that. So this is the focus of the month. And yes, we're trying to answer the basic question: how do advertisers persuade their audiences? Right? Oh, this is actually kind of. I'll discuss this quickly, but every week in this course is devoted to a different stage in the writing process. Okay, so week 1, we're here. The worksheet that you're going to complete, and I'll show a little bit later. Oops. Here, let's do that again. We're here brainstorming. Next week, you're going to be kind of in these 2 arms here, researching. Yes, there will be research required for this assignment, but you don't have to worry about that for this week. But week 2 will be researching and organizing. A sneak peek, week 2, that assignment will be an outline. Week 3, you're going to write the draft of your paper. And in week 4, you're going to get feedback from not only me, but from 2 of your classmates, and you're going to revise. And the writing process is a recursive process, meaning it's a process that can be done over and over again. Again, I think we have some artistic people here probably. So if you're a musician or you like to draw, love film, you love to sculpt, you love to paint, whatever, yeah, you probably go through each of these stages. Maybe not research if you're a painter, although maybe, right? But typically you start with ideas, get those ideas down the page and move them around, get it close to a final form, and then perfect it. Okay, and you can go through these stages again as needed. But yes, every stage in this course, every week, is demonstrated here. Again, week 1 brainstorming. This is a little bit backwards, I think. Oh no, this slide is for a different. Some people are teaching this course on a slightly different schedule. Yeah, week 1 is brainstorming. Week 2 is actually organizing the outline. Week 3 is writing. Week 4 is peer review and revision. Should get rid of that slide. Okay, that's actually the ad we're going to look at first. But remember, I said you have to identify 3 things. Okay, in your chosen ad. I think that roughly those elements that you're trying to identify can be put into 2 broad categories. The first are what I call formal qualities. Another word for formal qualities would be like technical things. So color, sound, music, camera work, okay, and so on, like technical stuff. Or thematic qualities. So this is kind of the softer stuff, like theme, motifs, character, story, audience. Okay, so technical, non-technical. Both are legitimate areas to consider when looking at an ad. So let's practice looking at an ad. And I know of no better way to do this than just to jump right into it. Not this one, this one. Okay, this is an ad for Jeep. I should note that you don't see both images at the same time. Here they're shown so you can see the visual trick. You would only see what's on the left side here. And as you can see, looked at one way, it looks like one animal. Here it's a giraffe's head. But if you flip it upside down, it looks like a penguin, right? A standing penguin. Kind of cool. It has the word Jeep. And I know the wording is very small, but it says see whatever you want to see. Written right side up above the image and upside down below. Probably to encourage you to kind of maybe tilt your head and notice the visual trick. This is part of a series that Jeep did. I can't get this to close. Here, let me show some quick. Um, for example, here's another one in the series. Looked at one way, it's a deer. Looked at another way, it's a seal. And one more. Oh, that's the same one I already have down here. Looked at one way, it's an elephant. Okay. Flip it over, it's a turkey. I don't know. I think it's nifty. Now, here's the thing. I've just thrown a lot at you, right? That we're working on ad analysis, that you can think about formal issues, technical issues, or thematic issues. Um, what are things that stand out to you? Don't worry about right or wrong at this stage. Just think about, when you look at this ad, what seems interesting or what seems like, it's a very minimalist ad, right? Admittedly. But using the chat window below, start shouting out some things that just leap out at you. Again, don't worry about right or wrong. Just like what stands out to you, what seems interesting, what seems different, what do you have questions about. I think it also helps to put yourself in the shoes of one of the ad's creators. Like, imagine you were on the team that had to design this ad. Like, what choices do you see being implemented here? Stephanie says, a simple ad because of neutral colors and font. Okay, there's at least one important thing going on there. Color. Destiny says texture. Okay, we can actually, let's talk about that. Let's start there. This will help maybe give other people time to think about other things. But this background, okay, it's sort of beige or khaki, but it's not a solid beige, right? It's got this fabricy, texture-like quality to it. Here's another thing I want you to keep in mind all month. Analysis seeks to answer the question of why. Okay? So ad analysis is not just about pointing things out, because that's just summarizing. That's just, the ad has this, the ad has this. No, it's about answering that question why. So why this background? Stephanie says they want you to focus on that center image and nothing else. Okay, we can come back to that. Yeah, there's some layout things going on. Brandon says cheap is meaning you could either use the vehicle to drive on either terrain, snow or dirt, either habitat. Okay, we can get back to tagline as well, and I will come back to that. But right now, because someone raised the issue of background, color, and texture, why? Okay, you're on this creative team. You're part of the ad agency that has designed this ad. Why did you choose this background? What in the world was going through your mind when you said, I'm going to go with beige or khaki, and I'm going to give it this fabric, textile kind of look? Any thoughts? Perhaps people are typing, so I'll give people some space. Like, what does this background remind you of when you see this texture, when you see this color? Stephanie says, reminds me of some car interiors. Okay, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. This doesn't strike me as a car interior. Brandon says something interesting. Potato sack, right? I think he's trying to say like burlap. And I think we're getting somewhere with that. This background, burlap, canvas, like literally canvas, like canvas tents, canvas roofs of a Jeep, or this color, beige, khaki. Like, why would you choose this? Sand, good, thank you, Brandon. That's good too, right? Like sand, dust, dirt. Why does that make sense for this brand? Why isn't it Toyota or Lexus or BMW, right? I think we're getting very, very close. Okay, good. Brandon says it's an off-road vehicle. Does this make sense, people? Like, the background is not accidental. It specifically chooses an earth tone. Okay, this beige, this khaki. And not only that, but it's got this texture that reminds one of burlap, or like I said, canvas, or even khaki clothing, right? The kind of clothing you would wear, canvas shoes. That's not accident, because what's the reputation? What do we think of when we think of Jeep? we think of, I mean, the classic Jeep, right? I mean, we all know that people buy giant Jeep SUVs to drive children to school and pick up groceries. But the classic image of Jeep is that rugged, independent, off-roading vehicle, right? It's the vehicle you jump in if you want to go on a safari or if you want to go off-roading, right? By the way, is this making sense to people? Because these are the sorts of things that you'll have to spot in your ad, and I know it can seem kind of uncomfortable at first, but I think once you get used to it, you'll find that it's about noticing things and answering the question why, right? So here, the background color and texture is not accidental. Okay, it connects deeply with Jeep. Does this make sense to people? Yes, no, maybe so. People are anybody feeling lost? Okay, good. I'm getting lots of yeses. Um, okay, I forget who mentioned it before. It was one of the Stephanies. But yeah, there's some layout things going on here, right? Like everything is drawn in the center because that's where the eye wants. That's where the ads designers want your eye to go. Obviously, it's going to be attracted by the huge image in the middle, but notice the Jeep is centered up and above. Okay, so it's this whole kind of visual thing here. It's also darkened at the corners, right? Darkened at the corners, a little bit lighter in the center. That's a subtle move to get your eye looking here. Okay. Um, so yeah, there's some interesting layout things going around. Stephanie says, I feel like I'd have had to have researched Jeep in order to understand that analysis. Maybe, but I don't know. Jeep is a pretty famous brand, right? I mean, it's possible. I mean, Stephanie, are you not super familiar with Jeep? You know nothing about cars. That's fine. If this were one of the ads, this is not one of the approved ads because obviously people would just imitate what we're talking about here in this session. You would stay away from the car ad. Okay, so yeah, your job, Stephanie, and everybody here, is to choose an ad where you see three things clearly. Okay, I would also say and I think we're kind of answering the obvious question here, but like the animal imagery, like why is it using this imagery again, right? What kind of vehicle would you take possibly to the African Serengeti to see giraffes, or to the tips of South America, where it kind of starts getting close to touching Antarctica to see penguins? A Jeep, right? You're not going to jump into your Lexus and do that. Um, so that's the thing, is that whatever ad you choose, you have to be able to see the ad in these very, very specific terms. Okay, being able to spot like color, texture, and it's being used for this reason. See, okay, so keep in mind you have to spot three things, and the three things, a good way to test whether they are interesting, viable, is if you can answer the question why. Right? Why this color? Why this background? Why animal imagery? Why do that? Remember, I said millions of dollars are spent on these ad campaigns. So the details are not accidental. Let's look at another one. Okay, this is an older ad. It's from the early 1970s. I still use it because there are a lot of interesting things going on in this ad. Also, this ad could very well exist today. There are a lot of retro style ads out there. Okay, ads that try to recreate the feel of the 1970s, sometimes the 1980s. But this is an ad from the early 70s for the convertible MG. So same deal. Okay, so thinking about either formal qualities, technical things, or the kind of non-technical things, what are some things we see going on here? And again, don't worry so much about right or wrong, or don't even worry necessarily if you can't answer the question why, but just what are things that stand out to you when you look at this? Okay, good. Ooh, d- Mr. Gillen. Lighting, good. Yeah, lighting's a big one. Brandon says right off the bat, it seems like it is used to show it will turn people on. Okay, why do you say that? Even if it seems obvious, explain to me. If you're saying that the ad seems kind of sexual, how does it communicate that? Stephanie says the car. Okay, but what about the car? Because remember, I do think there is something about the car and the woman. But remember, ad analysis is not ad description. It's not enough to say there's a car, there's a woman. There's a movie theater, right? We have to spot three interesting or important things. I'll tell you, lighting is important. Okay, Stephanie says it's red. And why is that important? I agree. Color is another important feature of this ad. Lighting, color. By the way, you've already got two. Boom, lighting, color. You've got two of the three things. Stephanie says they use the car colors and woman to maybe attract men. Yeah, absolutely, definitely. Um, what does red kind of suggest? Obviously, it can suggest danger. Um, Brandon says female headlights are on as well. Okay. Didn't mean to say that out loud. Red is the color of hot. Yeah, okay. So red is a sensual color, right? And I think Brandon phrased things little bit differently than I would. But listen, we're an adult crowd, right? It is not accidental that she's dressed this way. Okay, that she's braless, that she's again. I don't know how old everybody here is, or how well remember like the late '60s. Well, you wouldn't remember the late '60s, but know about the late '60s, the early '70s. Okay, so we have the feminist movement. Remember, we're coming out of the '60s, so the hippie movement on into the 1970s. So this is very much capturing that time. So yeah, it's not accident that what's front and center here, the car and the woman, right? There's a reason they're front and center. Not just there's absolutely a layout issue, like they're front and center because that's where the eye needs to go, but it's also because there's a connection between the two, right? Yeah, Stephanie, I'm going to mention that in a second. That's actually a good detail to point out. Who said it earlier? Oh, yeah, it's, Stephanie Hill. They use car color and the woman to attract men. Yeah, absolutely. And the tagline reinforces that, right? Because what is it that your mother wouldn't like? Everything about this scene, right? The traditional stereotypical mother would not like this car. Too dangerous, too impractical, too sexy. Same thing about this woman. There's nothing wrong with the woman. She seems like a perfectly nice person. But if you're thinking about that traditional old fashioned mom, she wouldn't approve this woman. Okay, she's clearly independent. She's her own person. Um, yeah, as Stephanie says, attracting the bad boy. And it's playing upon all these stereotypes, right? Like, what's the stereotype about a man who hits his 40s or 50s, midlife crisis, and this is the car he might go out and purchase? The ad's purposely playing on all this, right? It wants men to feel a little bit naughty, to feel like they're being the bad boy. That if they drive this car, maybe they'll attract this kind of woman. Um, let's see. Brandon's talking about muscle cars. Stephanie's saying, is this an ad for a vehicle? Yes, it's for the car. But Stephanie Sellers pointed out, yeah, it's not accidental. Like, there's this guy in the background staring. What is he staring at? The car, the woman, both? Again, there's something about this connection, right? The car is dangerous. The woman is quote unquote dangerous. She's not really, but that's what the ad is sort of playing with, okay? That they're desirable, that they're things your mother wouldn't approve of. And it's attracting the attention of this guy who's just standing there staring. Notice this too. Do we have any film fans in the room? Like, we're in front of a movie theater. You can make out Marlon Brando, and the movie's also here, Last Tango in Paris. I don't know if that film is remembered as well nowadays, but this is a film that came out in, I want to say, 74? 73, 74? It's nominated for Best Picture, but it is an incredibly sexually frank film. Like, even by 2018 standards, it would probably get an NC-17. It is incredibly sexually frank, right? It's a brilliant film, but yeah, it's not... Don't accidentally rent Last Tango in Paris or get it from Redbox and put it on during Thanksgiving dinner. That's not coincidence either. They're in front of this theater watching this movie. Again, something that the mother would not approve of. So we have more than three things. We have color, right? The use of reds and oranges. Colors that are kind of lusty, languid, sensual. Yeah, sensual is probably a good word. Does this make sense, by the way, people? That the color and the lighting, this kind of hazy orange, we're not even sure what time of day it is. It looks like it's dusk. It could even be overnight, like early morning, right? And again, the overall setting, this theater showing this movie. So we have lots of things we could talk about. We have our three things. You could talk about color, lighting, the connection made between the woman and the car. You could talk about color, lighting, and overall setting. You could talk about sexuality in general, as long as you have three specific things you want to say in support. Like the color is reinforcing that, the lighting is reinforcing that, the connection between the woman and the cars is reinforcing that. The overall setting is reinforcing that. So here's the thing: when you choose your ad, spend some time with it, because the more time you spend with it, the more times you watch it. If it's a print ad, the more time you spend looking at it. You should hopefully definitely be able to spot three things. Now, this ad, I have to give you the URL because sadly I'm having sound issues with my laptop, so I'm going to put this in here. Actually, you know what? I'm not sure this link works anymore. Here, give me 2 seconds. I'm going to go to YouTube. And I think if I do a search, Diet Coke, Tall, Dark, and Handsome. Here, first let me get the link and share it with you. Share. I got to fix that presentation because it still has an old link that isn't working. So here, let me put this in the chat. Hopefully. There you go. Can you please click on the link and watch it with sound? It's only like 15 seconds. I'll shut up so you can watch it. Meanwhile, I'm going to let it play without sound for the people who are watching the ad at home. By the way, for the people watching the ad at home, you can do the same thing. Go to YouTube. Just type in Diet Coke, Tall, Dark, and Handsome, because you do need to hear it as well. But here's the ad without sound. And same thing, guys and gals. Type some. What stands out to you? Okay, three things we have to say about this ad. Three interesting moves it makes. It's a short ad, only 15 seconds. But what are things that stand out to you? Again, think about formal issues, technical issues. Any thoughts? Was everybody able to watch the ad on your own machine and hear it? Okay, so what are some things we could spot in this ad? Show off. What are three interesting things going on here? Even if you can't figure out the why yet, just what stands out to you? Like as a viewer, what's interesting? Stephanie says the tall glass. The other Stephanie says the font. Okay, what about the tall glass? You mean like it's as it appears right now? As like a visual? Okay, Jose mentioned something huge. The music. Music is absolutely important. Why? What is it with the music? Like, why is music either interesting or important? Why is this kind of music? How would you describe this music, and why is it being used in this ad? Brandon says the ice is rising, and then it shows a small bottle next to a bigger glass, meaning a strong flavor. Okay, good. Yeah, I mean there are some interesting design choices here, like the bright red against this kind of burnished. Burnished isn't the right word. What's it? This clean kind of gray steel background, right? Really leaps off. And yeah, there's something going on here too. Even here, like okay, right? The two words, the two letters you see. Stephanie says this is hard. It's not that hard. You'll. Here's the thing, Stephanie. We have a worksheet designed to help you with this. And for students who have trouble spotting things, I do step in eventually and make suggestions. Okay, so nobody's gonna be left hanging if you struggle. But I do want to see you tackle that worksheet and really do try to spot three things. Okay. Mr. Gillen says also something important: the way the camera is showing the drink. Okay, so let's take those one at a time because we've got two big things already. The music. How do we describe this music? And why is it being used in this ad? Okay. Again, sadly, my sound isn't working, but I can let the ad roll. So Jose mentioned music. What is it about the music? You guys know. It's like it's obvious, but Mr. Gillen says as the camera goes up and zooms out, it reminds me of how people were showed in the movies, and the music makes it seem sexual. Bingo! Right? This is. I should have started with, is this ad funny or serious? It's clearly humorous, right? The ad is a send up of the music is right. It's got that waka waka funky. It's sort of a send up of what sexy music is supposed to sound like, right? And the same thing with that camera movement. Again, watch it. Where do we see this sort of camera panning typically? Think of movies, right? Almost always it's women, where the character comes in the room and you literally get like starting at the ankles and slowly traveling up. So the woman is kind of reduced to body parts. Sometimes you see people play with that humorously. You don't see it done so often with men unless the director is really trying to go against the grain and reverse that trend, that trope, or for comedy's sake. Do people still recognize movies like The Naked Gun? Do people still know what that movie is, or is that like a dated reference? But there's a scene in The Naked Gun, okay, which has Priscilla Presley as one of the main characters. And when she comes into the room, one of the movie's gags is that it does the, again, we've seen this a million times in movies, right? That slow camera that travels up the person's body. Except in her case, when it gets to her legs, the legs keep going on and on and on. I think her knees appear twice because it's such a well-known trope that the movie can actually make a joke about it, right? Because we've seen this a million times. Um, Stephanie says how a man looks at women up and down. They're using the glass to represent women, so it's directed toward men, especially the words tall, dark, and handsome. Stephanie, you got like 99% of that right. The only thing I would reverse is I think the ad is aimed at women, and the glass is kind of like the man. So yeah, there's a reversal here. You're absolutely right that normally when we see this in movies, yes, it's almost always the female form that's panned this way. Here, it's a reversal. Okay, so it's the tall glass of Diet Coke that's being scanned. And yes, tall, dark, and handsome, of course, is a familiar saying that we usually use towards men, about men, right? Um, by the way, I read somewhere that Coke Zero is the zero calorie product that's aimed specifically for men, because I guess for some reason men don't like Diet Coke. So Diet Coke is aimed primarily at women. Coke Zero is aimed at men. Um, yes, tall, dark, and handsome used by women. By women, yes. So, but yeah. By the way, Stephanie Hill, everything else you said there was spot on. That it's imitating the camera. So we got like we definitely have three things we could write about. Okay, so we got camera movement. Okay, that's an important move that the ad makes. That decision to use that kind of camera panning, right? Music, again, using that music, that sort of send up, that parody of funky, sexy music. That's a deliberate choice. And we can answer the question why, right? Why? Because it's the MG ad isn't really being played for laughs, but here it's a humorous commercial. Also playing with kind of sexual imagery, music, motifs. That's what I'm stretching for, okay? And it's doing so in its music, its camera work, and even the language, right? Tall, dark, and handsome. And we could definitely talk about other things. So if you're interested in color, right? So it's like this color because it stands out more. It's also here. There is the simplicity of the background, right? This really clean gray background against which not just the word Coke, which absolutely pops out to you. That's right where your eye goes first. But then to the other things that stand out, the tall glass, okay, and the product itself. So yeah, we got like 3, 4, maybe 5 things to say about this ad. How comfortable do a few people feel that they can do this with their chosen ad? That you can find, remember, you have 8 ads to choose from. So you're not stuck with just one ad. Do you feel confident that you can find an ad, that you can find 3 things to talk about? Okay. Let's talk about what we need to do for week 1. Okay, so here's the 8 ads. Again, don't choose the Apple ad if you can't see three things going on. It happens every month. Someone picks Chico or someone picks Apple because they love Apple. And then I have to say, why did you choose this ad if you can't see anything that's going on? You should have chosen the McDonald's ad or the Call of Duty ad. Um, Stephanie says she's not comfortable the second time taking my course. Don't worry, Stephanie. We're going to talk about, okay, so here's the first major assignment. I already have it open. It's to complete this worksheet. Okay. And this is why I said at first glance, this assignment seems almost simple. Oh, look, 10 questions. I can do that. And people sit down and just type away. But obviously, you have to answer the questions with care. So the first one's pretty easy. What is the title of your ad? You can all do that. Diet Coke, Tall, Dark, and Handsome. For what company is this ad created? That's pretty easy. Diet Coke. What creative team worked on the ad? That you do a little bit of research. But again, the information's out there. That shouldn't be difficult. Question 3. Describe the ad as if you were explaining its visuals and details to someone who has never seen it before. Some students stop here. So they do a great job describing the ad. Meticulous, detailed, but they forget this part. Be sure to identify specific details that stand out to you, such as color, symbol, space, lighting, sound effects, music, camera. Okay, basically that important stuff. So here's where you would, yes, you give me a detailed description of the ad, but paying attention to important things. Okay, because it's in question 4 that you'll explain why those details are important. Okay, but if you haven't pointed them out, and you have a sample, by the way, every major assignment in this class comes with examples. So, for example, here you have the blank template. It says worksheet, use this to complete assignment. And right here, click this link to view an example worksheet. Okay, so this is a past student's effort, and this is on the Diet Coke ad. Okay, so you get to see her effort. Right, so here she doesn't fully answer the question. But here's her summary, which is a little bit on the short side, but it's still pretty good. I mean, and she does pay attention to important things. She mentions camera. She does mention the retro-looking font, which I think someone else mentioned. I'm sorry I didn't get back to that, but someone mentioned font. Music, right? So she's touching on important things. So in the next prompt, she can answer why they're important. Everything in the ad reminds me of a sex scene in a movie. The music has a sexy vibe. The words used to describe the drink could be used to describe a good-looking man. The camera even moves up the glass of Coke like it might move up a person's body. The ad's message seems to be that Diet Coke is as good as a sexy romantic partner. Nice. Okay. And then it continues. Actually, I'll just keep this one open instead of showing the blank one. What is the product selling? These next two are pretty easy. There's one tricky one when we get down to number 8. Okay, so it says list 3 possible techniques. This is just a fancy way of saying what are the 3 things you spotted. Okay, so if it's Diet Coke and it's music, camera work, language, then list them here. Music, language. Here, for some reason, she switches to minimalist approach, but that doesn't end up. Number 9, you have to create a thesis. And for this, I do have to briefly, we're almost done with the session, by the way. I apologize. We've gone a little bit over. I usually try to keep these things to about an hour. We're about 4 minutes over, but I will wrap up pretty quickly. We got to talk about thesis. So here, let me skip a couple slides. Boom. A thesis, maybe you've been introduced to this in high school, okay? Lots of people get it in high school, but if you did get it in high school, you're going to get it here. A thesis is like the roadmap of the paper. A thesis, we're not going to get into this until next week, the lecture for next week, where we talk about essay structure, but you need a thesis. A thesis is a single sentence where you're going to list those 3 things you've identified, okay, in a clear sentence. So here's some examples. Here's the thesis for the Jeep ad. Through the use of simple color, 1, playful imagery, 2, that animal imagery, okay, and a double meaning tagline that reinforces theme, 3, okay, so 3 things: color, animal imagery, tagline. The see whatever you want to see ad appeals to the inner adventure inside everyone to unlock a hidden enthusiasm for Jeep. Here's the Diet Coke, a thesis for the Diet Coke ad. Okay, the Diet Coke Tall, Dark, and Handsome ad uses sexually charged language, 1. Seductive music, 2. and slow camera movement to convince sophisticated women to buy into the idea that drinking Diet Coke is as fulfilling as heteronormative romance. Just fancy language for a relationship between two people of the opposite sex. Okay. Here's a good way to think about it. Here's a little sort of formula for a thesis. At its most basic, a thesis will say something like this. The blank ad uses blank, blank, and blank in order to blank. Now, if that's confusing, it becomes less confusing when we fill it in. The Diet Coke ad uses sexy music, intriguing. I can't remember how she said it exactly, right? Intriguing. How do you spell intriguing? Camera work, and suggestive language in order to, and then you kind of explain what the ad, who it's trying to reach and what it's trying to do. Okay, so, right, the ad does these three things. Why is this important? Because come essay time, and let me show you a sneak peek. I've actually done some of the assignments with the class, so I didn't complete a worksheet, but I do have a sample outline for week 2 and a sample essay for week 3. So here's what we're working toward. And I hope this doesn't confuse people, but I think it might be useful to look at what we're working toward. So here's a Jeep essay. Okay, I wrote this paper. The essay says Jane, a student, but that's just a little joke. Okay, Jane, a student. So here's a full essay. This is what we're working toward. Okay, so we'll talk about these paragraphs next week when we talk about the essay structure. But just notice, the thesis is going to be the final sentence in your opening paragraph. Why? Because it sets up everything that's going to come in the body, the middle of your paper. So here are my 3 points through the use of simple color, playful imagery, and a double meaning tagline, blah, blah, blah. And look what happens. First thesis point becomes the topic of your first body paragraph. So this entire paragraph is about the Jeep ad's use of color, where I mentioned the things that you guys pointed out brilliantly. Right? That the ad's beige background brings to mind fabric and textiles, a burlap sack, a tawny canvas scent, khaki clothing. The color might also suggest environment, dusty past, windswept dunes, even the debris kicked up in a Jeep wheel's wake. Okay, the color choice is no accident, for it reinforces Jeep's outdoorsy image. Okay. And then the next paragraph focuses on imagery. So here's where I talk about the animal imagery, why it's doing so. The next paragraph goes on to the next topic, which is the ad's tagline, and how it reinforces, again, this idea of Jeep being a versatile automobile. Spend a paragraph talking about that. So this is what we're working toward, okay? You need a thesis in order to move forward with the remaining assignments. The thesis is going to set up your entire paper. Those 3 things you identify are going to be used to organize your ad analysis essay. That's why it's super important that the worksheet get completed correctly. Again, most of the prompts are pretty self-explanatory, but for number 8, list 3 possible tactics or techniques. Those are the 3 things you notice in the essay. And then number 9 asks you to take 2 stabs at the thesis. And look, the prompt contains the sample thesis statements we just looked at as a reminder. Why do I ask for 2? Because sometimes you might write, one of your thesis might be better written than the other. Sometimes you might notice a whole bunch of things, 5, 6 things going in the paper. And they're spread across 2 different thesis statements, and I might be able to help you decide which I think are the 3 best. Okay, so basically you're taking 2 attempts at a thesis statement. Jose says, for this assignment, we just have to do this worksheet, and that's it, because it said something about a brainstorm. This worksheet is helping you brainstorm, right? You have to look at the ad. You have to look at it carefully. And when you answer these prompts, you're brainstorming by completing the worksheet. Number 10, this confuses people too, because the language is kind of a little bit talky, but your research must incorporate research. You don't have to do research yet. All this asks is to discuss some concepts you might research. Okay, so next week we're going to talk about research, but what might you research for your chosen ad? I'll give you a hint. Research should primarily work to support your thesis points, those three things that you noticed. So for Jeep, I would type something like, research color theory, specifically earth tones, because the Jeep ad uses a beige or khaki color. Okay, so something like that. Okay, just give me some ideas of what you think you might research. Because I've gone long, I'm going to stop there. That really is the end of the lecture. Yeah, the week one, the first major assignment is not difficult, but it becomes difficult if you just think that it's, oh, I just got to rifle through 10 questions. You know, I've seen people, they fill it out like doctor's forms when you go to the doctor's office and they give you that clipboard and you race through it. Don't do that. You don't have to write a novel, but make sure that you've watched the ad carefully, probably several times, or spend time with your print ad if you chose a print ad, considering it carefully. And yeah, answer these prompts with care. And again, you have an example, okay? That past student worksheet. Stephanie says, would we research competitors' ads, or would that be too off topic? It's probably going to be off topic, okay? I could probably think of a rare instance where that could be relevant, but it's probably not going to be. And there's a reason why that question is last on the worksheet, because hopefully when you get to that prompt, you've already thought about the ad quite a bit. Maybe you have a sense of what the three things you're going to focus on in that ad are. By the way, now, yes, it's time for Q&A. If you're comfortable with what we've gone over, I'm not going to force you to stay here. You've already stayed longer than I intended. I promise future sessions, I will try to keep it to exactly an hour instead of like an hour and 15 or an hour and 10 that it went tonight. But I do thank you so much for attending this first lecture. Have a great Thanksgiving if you're taking off right now. I will hang out a bit, though, and answer questions if you have them. Okay? Again, this assignment is not due until Tuesday when we get back. So ask away, people, if you have questions about anything regarding the class, ad analysis, this first worksheet, fire away. Brandon says, so we don't have anything due until next week. Yeah, all the due dates have been extended because literally the university closes Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So normally we have the journals, the weekly journals where you summarize this lecture and the assigned readings, and the Achieve modules due on later in the week, but we can't have that because, yeah, so basically, yes, when you return. Jose, yeah, go ahead and ask your question. Yep. You're welcome. And again, if everything has been lucid and perfectly clear, I mean, you can definitely hang out and see if other people ask interesting questions that might help you. But if you are desperate to get out of here, I'm not going to force you to say. Thank you, Stephanie. Yes. A great holiday to everyone. Jose says, for activity 1.3, I have to summarize the video of. No, you have to summarize the assigned readings. Okay, so over at McGraw-Hill. And it's included in the 1.3 instructions as well. The readings and the lecture, Jose. So if I go into, again, if I go into the assignment itself, I have to get this control panel out of my way, which you can't see, but it's blocking. Okay, here we go, 1.3, right? So highlight in yellow. Okay. I recommend writing 2 paragraphs, one that summarizes the assigned readings, one that summarizes the lecture. I treat these journals as an informal quiz. Listen, I'm happy to read whatever you write, so I don't want this to just be pure summary, but I gotta come away with strong evidence that yes, this person did the readings. Yes, this person did the lecture. I admit I tweaked the assignment. I know we have a couple of people who are taking the class a second time, but I really insist. I have to see journals that prove to me that the readings have been done and the lecture has also been watched. Both are important, but the lectures are even more important. because it's not possible to complete the writing assignments for this class correctly if you're not watching the lectures. People watch the lectures, I'm telling you, they pass with flying colors. They do just fine. So yeah, it's a little bit of a lighting of a fire under people to make sure that they watch the lectures. But the reward is you show me the evidence that you did both things. I'm happy to give you that high score. Okay, it should be automatic. Yeah, it saves me a lot of grief. You're welcome, Jose. Because again, I just know from experience, people watch the lectures have very few stumbles. People don't. I'm happy to work with them, of course, but it's reteaching things that we've covered in the lecture. Other questions? Brandon, also, everything we do as far as work goes through McGraw-Hill. And then the other site we are signing up for, I think it's a bit backwards. Everything you do work-wise, in terms of major assignments, get submitted to turnitin.com. Right? So this guy here. And McGraw-Hill is where you will do the interactive modules. Remember, I answered a couple questions, the grammar things, and to do the readings. And they're all neatly organized by folders, so it should not be confusing like what you need to do for week 1, week 2, week 3, etc. No, it's a fine question. Don't worry. Stephanie says this usually varies depending on instructors, but are you okay with use of conjunctions at the beginning of sentences? Use sparingly. Yeah, I mean, I'm technically okay with it. I do it sometimes. It's a pretty informal move. There's nothing wrong with starting a sentence with and or but. I do it sometimes too, but typically in slightly more informal writing. Like, there's nothing grammatically wrong about it. It's just a little bit. I don't even want to say awkward because you do see it. It's just like in a formal essay, it's not very common. Like, for example, the use however can usually replace but. But no, I'm not that obsessed. I'm much more interested in big picture things, right? I need to make sure that every student can write an organized, focused 5-paragraph essay. We're going to talk about that next week, the 5-paragraph format, which some people have gotten in high school, but some people haven't, right? I need to make sure that every student can essentially, not just in class, but in life, when the situation is appropriate, you'll find this in work, writing a cover letter, that, yeah, most writing has a basic form of there's some sort of opening or introduction. There is some sort of closing or conclusion at the end. And in between, there are separate paragraphs that focus on one idea at a time. That's what we're working toward in this class. And those big picture issues are much more important to me than, it's not that I don't pay attention to grammar. Certainly, there's a grade for that as well. But I'm a big picture kind of guy. So you're not going to fail because you began a sentence with a conjunction. Jose says, if I start McGraw-Hill activity and I can't finish it one day, can I go back and continue doing it? Yes, absolutely. It remembers where you left off and records your progress. I forgot to mention the heart of the lecture. The recording's still going, so that's okay. I've actually set up the Turnitin due dates for the entire month. The due dates are what they say on FSO. Okay, it's a little bit confusing to explain why I did that. In part, it allows people to work ahead if they want. So if you want to complete all 3 Achieve modules this weekend, you can do so. There's another reason that's more instructor driven. Makes it easier for me to see people's progress. But yeah, they're open for the entire month. So you can go back and finish it. If you don't finish it one sitting, other people can do all of them in one sitting if they want. That's fine with me. You're welcome. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. I'm not leaving, but I think at this point, the people who are watching the recording are probably about ready to jump off a bridge. That's why I really try to keep these to about an hour, because after an hour, I lose people. So I'm going to stop the recording now. Thank you. I will see you next week for week 2. Have a nice Thanksgiving, everyone who's watching. Adios.